So I was going to go over with you guys on this mill, and a bunch of other mills will have the same concept as this. If you're trying to get speed in your blade, there's a lot of things that go into play with that. We're going to start from the top, and the top of this, what I'm talking about is your belt. And a lot of people do not run proper tension on their belt. And we're not running a Woodmizer belt, but I'm not going to fully go over that. But if you guys want more info on that, let me know. I've got a video kind of showcasing this. But one of the things is not only your belt needs proper tension, but you need to have it set where your motor, you know, if this and your tensioner that comes up are too close and it's not riding out, you don't get proper, you know, alignment and how it's going to pull on the motor. Now, one of the things is you want to be able to bog this motor down. So the two things that play a factor in Bandmill like speed is, one, your engine RPM feeding to your blade RPM, and then the steadiness of your blade. And we're going to go over all that. So basically on this motor, you want to make sure, one, if you've got an older mill and you buy one of these used, that the pulley's not wore down so much that this right here is not grooved properly to fit your belt. And this has about 15,000 hours on it. It has over 15,000 hours. And I've changed this pulley once in that time period. And what I noticed is how much better grip I got when I changed this pulley. And to be honest, it could probably be changed again in the next 2,000 hours. But you can see right here, you know, in your grooves, usually a pulley, as it narrows down, your belt goes into it and it rides in there, and that's how you get your grip. And when this comes up and puts tension on it, it sucks that belt into that pulley, making the motor drive. So when you're coming through that and you're driving really hard, you want that belt to not lose RPM. You don't want that belt to slip until you've lost at least 1,000 or 1,500 RPM. So these motors normally run to where the blade is at about 5,800 RPM. If you're not getting 5,800 RPM on your blade, and you can see that on your LT70 Super right on the dash. So in the dash in here, I'll show you. You can see your blade RPM right here, these feet per minute. That's going to tell you how fast your blade is spinning. Now, if you've got a Super 70, you can go into the Setworks and go to head calibration, and then you can go down to blade speed right here, and you can turn it up or down depending on how fast you want your blade speed to be. And if yours is not starting at least 5,800 RPM, you're not going to have good blade speed. So you need it to start at 5,800 RPM. So keep that in mind. Let's go back out here. So if you know you're starting with 5,800 RPM and you have a good pulley and a good belt and proper tension, the next thing that you're going to look at is your alignment on your wheels. So like I was showing the other day, and I don't have tension on this, but you want that pulley, you want this blade guide roller. One thing you want is you don't want it to be without grooves. If you've got this right here and these are flat and you don't have the ridges in there, like the depth part right there, then you can't get blade like sawdust and sap to go around that. Every time you have buildup or you have a chunk of wood or anything, or a little bitty sawdust right here, all that's got to go somewhere. So what it does is it tries to go under this, and if the grooves aren't there, makes your blade bounce. And it's minuscule, it's very minute, but all that vibration causes cracks. It causes you to not get enough speed out of your blade, and it slows your cut down. So if you want the optimal cut, you need to keep these rollers good, and you want your blade to be properly set on that blade guide. And these are 1.5 inch blade. The bigger, the wider the blade you can run, the better. but you need a proper guide roller to fit it. Most of these Woodmizer mills come with an 1.25 inch roller. You want an 1.5 inch, and then you want an 1.5 inch blade. You have to fit the roller to the blade. So another thing is you want the blade running where it's touching, starting on this back roller right here. As you can see, you want it touching that back roller right there, and you want it to bump back into this when you push real hard, but to not rub this all the time. If it's rubbing this all the time, you're gonna get breaks from the back to the front, and that's gonna cause your blades to prematurely break. Now, the next thing that you're gonna look at is your blade wheel belts. You wanna keep good blade wheel belts on there, and you wanna make sure that there's no debris hiding in the bottom of this blade wheel inside, because this under here is going to cause vibration if there's stuff clamped up under there, and usually it's that wheel that gets it. And I've replaced this wheel on mine in the 16,000 hours, but a lot of times you'll get buildup right here if you're sawing a real sappy wood, and it builds up, and then every time that spins around and the blade's on there, it causes it to go like that, very minutely. So imagine you've got it doing it over there, then you've got it right here. All of that is going to slow your cut down. Imagine taking a knife and trying to cut bread like that instead of just going straight down and cutting it. Now the next thing is going to be in this right here. So if you want this to track properly, and as you can see here, you want this blade to be out about that far on your blade guide or your blade wheels. You don't want it too far forward, and you don't want it too far backwards. Either way, if you've got it too far, will cause premature cracks in the blade. And how you adjust that is on this right here. So you can see you've got these bolts right here. These stabilize it. These right here and that one all stabilize the shaft that's in here. Now, one of the things that I see with a lot of mills is they don't have this properly tracking correctly, which won't properly keep tension on the blade. Or if you've got a belt, a shaft over there that's loose and not tight, like you don't have all them tightened up to where this tracks properly, you're gonna get poor blade speed because those wheels can move as they get tension on them. And both sides have tensioners on them. So you can see, you can run the tensioning down tighter on both sides. And what you're gonna want is you're gonna wanna check that. And the other one is right down there in that tubing. You probably can't see it from there, but I'll take you down there and show it to you. So in that tubing right here, you can see all of this here. There's bolts in that and a shaft that comes out in the inside. So you want to make sure that you've got proper tracking on your wheels, not only for the blade, but also that it's properly not letting a lot of movement in these. Because if you're getting a lot of movement in these and they're not properly tight, that's going to make that blade contract and do like this every time it gets stress in it, and it's going to make these crack even better. And these are not built super strong, but the 4500, the 5500, things like that have a double bearing shaft deal that is much more robust. And also you can get the blade tension way tighter on those. That's why they run the steel wheel on them that's a lot wider. The next thing that I see a whole lot of mills that they're not looking at is this arm right here. And one of the most neglected things is these blade guide rollers. And I know a lot of you are probably like, well, what's that got to do with anything? Well, a lot of people, as long as this will turn their blade guide in, they're fine with it. They don't pay any attention to it. But what I see in a lot of mills is they'll go to tighten their blade up, and this arm will rise up like that. And not only, one thing is they're not getting proper downforce on the blade like they should, but also it's tracking up so it doesn't cut as smooth as it should because there's not the proper downforce with the arm. So what I tell people to do is to pump theirs up and then let the tension off and see how far that arm drops. If it drops down 1/4 of an inch, you need to put new rollers on so this is snugger against this bar so it's not letting that move up and down. And you won't notice it a bunch until you try to cut fast, and then you can watch it rise if you know what you're looking for. So you want this arm to be properly tensioned, and you can't really tell by taking your hand and trying to move it up and down because your hand doesn't have enough force. Now, if you can take your hand, move it up and down, you definitely don't have enough pressure inside. And on these rollers here, these are cammed to where they can spin tighter or looser. So if you loosen this and you hold the top and turn the bottom, these are cammed to run in and out, and then you tighten them right here. So this gives you tighter force as you groove it in. And so you can see how snug, and there's plenty of lip up here. A lot of people will run these until this is wore out in here, and this, there's barely a lip because it's so sloppy in there, and it lets that arm just move up and down like that every time they tension their blade or anything like that. So that's another thing that you got to pay attention to. On the blade guides on this here, I like my blade guides at least 1/4 inch downforce on each side. So each wheel, after you align your mill and everything, and you do your downforce on your rollers, I almost max both sides out completely every time, because I see a lot of mills and their blade guide rollers, they can turn them by hand even when they're touching the blade at full tension. You cannot turn mine by hand at full tension, because if you can, all that, there's no pressure holding down on there. And these belts are rubber, so they let it fluctuate. And the farther you try to cut on width wise, the more tension you need on this blade as far as the width, because it won't let it fold up and down if that guide roller is tight. So that's something that you really, really need to pay attention to, and make sure that you've got plenty of downforce on the blades. That's one of the big things. And the belt. A lot of people do not keep proper tension on their belt, and literally they try to cut fast and their belt will squeal or slip, and then they, back out of it and do it again. Every time you do that, you take the grooves out of the belt. And you can look at your belt. If your belt, if you look in here and you look at a belt, let me see if I've got one down here. I think I've thrown all the belts away that are big like that, but let's see if this dual belt has it. This was one of the drive belts that had broke, I think, but you can't see it. But on these belts, if you look at your belt and there is cracks, little cracks going between these ridges down to the top, like little hairline cracks, and you can fold that up and spread that gap right there, you need a new belt. You shouldn't have any cracks between the cogs, and those should stay the same gap no matter what. All of this plays a huge, huge role in getting a super fast cut. And so if you've got any of that stuff out of line or not properly tensioned, or these right here are tracked up or down, then it's going to make that blade have to work harder to go straight. So you want to put a proper alignment tool on this, and I'll show you that. This is Woodmizer's blade tool that they use and anybody uses. Basically, you want to put a new blade on here when you do this, and that way you make sure that you don't have to use a new blade, but I'm just going to show you how it works. So if you don't have one of these, you're going to put this on here and use your toe board or a flat surface there. Put the front on it, make sure, set it at 14, make sure this is at 14, and then the back is at 14 when you pull the mill forward. And this isn't a mill alignment video. I can do one of those, but you need this is a full speed, to learn how to cut fast, because even if you align your mill, it does not mean you're going to cut fast. If you don't have a proper belt, you don't have proper tension, you don't have proper downforce, if you've got loose, bar or anything like that, you'll never be able to cut really fast. And all of those issues I see when people say, hey, I cannot get my mill to cut as fast as you. Now, another thing, we have a 22 and it has the DEF motor on it. Now, we have deleted it, but those motors usually with the EGR, don't seem to be able to push as hard as the 17s and back. I don't know why, but that E-Jet DEF system and stuff on there, it's a little bit different motor, the fuel system, but it just don't seem that it pushes the same RPM as well as these do. But now when you delete them, then you don't have all those same issues. But we've ran into a couple more issues, and so you value it down, didn't you? But like I said, that right there will get you guys to cutting very fast with your mill. And these belts, I know, are better than the Woodmizer ones. So if you guys are wanting to get one of these belts for your mill, now this works on the 17 and back. We've still been testing for the 22 and up, so I'm not going to put that yet. But the 17s and back that take the 950 belt, I'll put a link in the bio. Just click more below the video, and you can pick one of these belts up, and I think you'll be truly amazed with it when you put it on your mill because it just really grips super hard. But other than that, I think that just properly, changing your oil and doing things like that to keep your motor maintained will help you. But you're going to get the most speed. What the thought process is you want all the RPM you can get to the blade, and that blade to be as stable as possible going through the wood. Because anytime you're making a blade do that, it's way harder to get it to go smooth and fast. So you want very stable blade pressure, and this to let wood bypass through the system every time. We're still got a mess out here. It's like an ice skating rink. Look at this. This blowed in. Everybody's done went down right here. This is the old ice skating plaza in here. I mean, it's super slick.